Life in the Fast Lane, your weekly NASCAR handicapping show right here live on WagerTalk TV, and we are live as we are every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I was going to say Wednesday afternoon. Technically, it is 1 p.m. Eastern for all of us on the East Coast, but those of us in Vegas, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Wednesday, we are live throughout the NASCAR season, recapping last week's NASCAR race at Bristol, looking ahead to this week's NASCAR race in Las Vegas. It'll be a night race on Sunday, late afternoon Vegas time, which is a little bit of an interesting start there. But let me bring in my usual suspects and partners here for NASCAR handicapping, as always, from sportsmemo.com, Rotke Atkinson, and from wagertalk.com, Andy Lang. And I'm, of course, also your host, Steve Merril, on WagerTalk as well. Rocky, let me start with you. We had our first cutoff race. And, guys, I saw this stat. I put it out on Twitter the other day, as you know. Really an amazing stat. Going into the race Sunday at Bristol, on all races this season, Ryan Blaney had more stage points than anybody, including even Kevin Harvick. Yet Ryan Blaney is no longer in the playoffs. And, Rocky, we said that he basically had to win the race. He led a lot of laps at Bristol, but had mixed results during his career and was not that great once again, Rocky. But what were your thoughts on Saturday night's race at Bristol on the cutoff?
Well, coming off a win, I'll get started with that. I'm 87 and 46, 65% last 3 years with all my NASCAR picks now. We had Boyer over Austin Dillon as my premium pick, my free play cash here on the show with Logano over Blaney. I also picked Harvick to win the race. He did. I picked Kyle Busch to finish second. He did. Picked Hamlin to finish third. He wrecked a little bit early there, messed his car up. Harvick took on the win, his ninth win of the year. Kyle Busch had a great race, finishing second. Eric Jones had a good run, finishing third. Chase Elliott won stage one. Kyle Busch won stage two. Cole Custer, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Matt DiBenedetto all failed to advance and make the top 12 of the playoffs. The bottom four of the playoffs headed into Vegas are Eric Almirola, Kyle Busch, Clint Boyer, and Kurt Busch. So it should be interesting heading into Las Vegas here this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, both Busch brothers always dangerous, obviously, as you said, Rocky. Yeah, if you look at Andy, if you look at the playoff reset you hear with the points, you get those bonus points for wins, obviously, and for stage wins, and that's why some guys have 20, 30, I think in Harvick's case, 60 points more than the bottom guys. To put that in perspective, Harvick's basically a race and a half up with 60-some point lead over the cutoff with 3 races until the next one. So he's almost a 100% lock, especially with his consistency to be in the round of 8. Those guys at the bottom, a lot can happen. I mean, we're going to know after this race, in Vegas, because this is the one race, Andy, where, and we'll talk about it more, of course, where we shouldn't have much chaos. The regular guys should be at the top. But after this, viewers, we've got Talladega, which is obviously 100% random. And then we've got the Roval at Charlotte, not the regular course, but the Roval, which you're not going to see a lot of wrecks, but it's also you're not going to see a lot of passing, and that can be kind of random as well. And starting position will be key. But Andy, what were your takeaways from Bristol? Rocky, of course, mentioned the guys that didn't make it. Ryan Blaney, the big name there, he could have won this whole thing. And then DiBenedetto was a guy I was sad to see Andy not make it. He had a nice team this year. He raced well because he was finally on a team that could race well, but didn't quite have enough for the playoffs. Do you think that was just bad luck, Andy, or do you think that was not a coincidence, as he had never been there before for the 21 car at least?
No, we learned a couple valuable lessons, especially in NASCAR. You have to be flexible, and you can't be stuck in your ways. You can't say, I'm going to fade this guy for the entire season. It doesn't happen. You can't say, I'm going to bet on this guy for the entire season, unless you're talking like Harvick or Hamlin. And Blaney and DiBenedetto are classic examples. We made a lot of money betting on Blaney for a stretch, but it's important to get off of it. And not only do you not bet on him, you bet against him. And he peaked too early, and he faded at the worst possible time. DiBenedetto did the exact same thing. He was running great in those Michigan and Indianapolis races, and you could just see him start fading and fading and fading, and he faded at the wrong time. And there is such a thing as peaking too quickly, and I think you could just see it coming with Blaney. Kyle Busch looks like he's doing the opposite. I mean, he's been terrible up to this point, but he's really started to pick it up. I thought he was going to get the win at Bristol. Harvick beat him out, as Harvick has been doing all year. So I think learning a valuable lesson about being flexible, not being stuck in your opinions, and being able to jump from betting on a guy to betting against. You have to do it, especially in NASCAR, and to bet it on Blaney gave us perfect examples of that.
Yeah, and Andy, I want to ask you too. You'd mentioned going into the race at Bristol that you were going to look at what was it? New Hampshire? What was the other track? Phoenix, I think you said. I remember you said the championship track.
They raced recently at Dover, which is a smaller track. So I was not looking at banking. I was looking at size.
Right. I think we all mentioned Dover being a concrete 1 mile over, and they did have the banking as well.
And then Phoenix, yeah.
But I remember you mentioned another one. Was it Phoenix?
Yeah, it was
Rocky
Phoenix.
and I both were a little surprised by that. Did you see much of a correlation to Phoenix with the race on Sunday?
Kevin Harvick running away with it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy though? And I mean, yeah, the reason I wanted to bring that up, Andy, of course, that's the championship track. Once again, anybody that's looking at future odds, and I don't really recommend playing them because they're so low. I think you're better off just playing Harvick to win the race at Phoenix. Basically, you'll get the same odds pretty much. The only catch, of course, is he could finish second. Some random guy wins. He would win the championship still, not win the race. But as we've seen, guys, almost every year since they've had this format, the guy wins the race is one of the championship four. But Andy, yes, I agree with you on Harvick. Any other takeaways there on Bristol that might translate to Phoenix with some other guys that maybe surprised you?
I mean, Kyle Busch ran great. Hamlin it kind of got unlucky, but I think he'll be fine. But I thought Harvick and Kyle Busch really separated themselves. I even didn't think Brad was showing a whole lot throughout. But the guy that I am continuing to look to bet on, and a guy that I think is, again, he peaked earlier in the year, then he faded, and now he's back, is Joey Logano. And Logano has looked great the first few races here. That's a guy that can easily get a win at one of these tracks and can be there at the end. And once you get to Phoenix, all bets are off. So I'll be looking at guys like Kyle Busch and Joey Logano to bet on in head-to-head matchups.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Logano win the Phoenix race earlier this year?
I'd have to look it up and see. I think he did.
He did. It was either Vegas or Phoenix, and we're at Vegas this week. I'm going to pull it back up. But
he won Vegas.
He won Vegas? Okay, yeah. I forget who was Phoenix.
No, and he did win Phoenix.
Okay, because I remember Bowman dominated California, and I want to get to him in a little bit when we talk about Vegas here, because he's another guy, Andy. I thought of when you said, you got to be flexible. We played against Bowman for several months, but he is still in the playoffs, Rocky, right? Your boy Bowman made the final 12, and he's running okay, and he can do some damage at these cookie cutters. But I like Kyle Busch, as you guys know. I predicted him to win last week for the first time, and definitely thought he had a chance. One thing I want to point out, Rocky, that we haven't touched on, might come up here in a moment when we do the Ricky Stenhouse Award, but 3 Joe Gibbs cars combined failed inspection 6 times pre-race. Jones was one of them, and it was Hamlin and Kyle Busch. So 3 of the 4 had to drop to the back of the field. Truex Jr. did not. He stayed up front and ran well again, as we've talked about. But Rocky, what were your thoughts on that overall? And obviously they still had a pretty good run for the most part.
Yeah, Kyle came right back through the field. Came from last to second, and even won stage 2. So he got back through there pretty quick. Hamlin, of course, he got into the wreck with his teammate Truex in stage 2, so that kind of messed him up. And who was the other one? Eric Jones had a good run. He came all the way through the field as well. And I know some guys that follow us on Twitter was asking us something about fading Jones in Bristol, and I know we were like, no, I wouldn't recommend fading Jones at Bristol, and it turned out to be a good decision as he finished 3rd. So that's it.
Yeah, and the question was Boyer versus Jones. We all kind of chimed in on it Saturday. By the way, viewers, we love the chat here on YouTube. We love the interaction on Twitter as well. We're here to give you advice. We're not hiding our picks necessarily because we don't always have picks on those matchups. So ask us, and we'll let you know what we're thinking. And we don't always agree. In fact, I think Andy, you're a little stronger on Boyer than Rocky and I were just on the playoff versus non-playoff. And I thought of this as I was watching the race Saturday. I wanted to ask both of you, Andy, I'll start with you, is what are your thoughts going forward now on the bottom 4 guys that got bumped? I know you said Blaney hasn't been that strong recently, but he's very good on cookie cutter tracks like Vegas this week. Do you play him a little less because he's a non-playoff guy now? Do you still take that same approach going forward?
I love the angle of playing guys that are in the playoffs versus guys that are out of the playoffs. It's been tried and true. It's been tried and true over the years. I've tested this theory with my own money, and It works. It just does. Like I said, the driver isn't motivated. The crew isn't motivated. The teams will take the best parts and the best crew guys and put them on the other teams. They're depleted, and they're just not going to race the playoff guys as hard. You just see it over and over and over again. I think Corey brought up that there's the Boyer versus De Benedetto who's out. I'll take the guy that's in 10 times out of 10. So now you don't do it every time, but you pick your spots. And I'm certainly never going to be betting on a guy that's out of the playoffs versus somebody that's in. But I that is one of my favorite angles this time of year.
Yeah, what you mean is the guys that are out now are no longer playoff drivers, right, Andy? I mean, you're talking about the last 12 now. You're talking about the live guys, the live 12. And I would agree with you. And if you look at the results, guys, you could say some of it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because they are the best drivers and they always finish top. But then again, I think there is something rocky to these guys being given a little extra cushion. And I would go back to what I said a few weeks ago is I wouldn't play those future odds. I would just wait till Phoenix and play the guy you like. And I know there's that risk that one of the other 36 drivers could win and your guys finish seconds, wins the championship. You don't win the race. But we've yet to see that happen. And Andy brought up Logano. He went in fourth a couple years ago and won the damn thing. And almost every year so far, they not only win it, but they go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Every year. Really almost run alone. It really is like it's their own race. So Andy's on to something there. I totally agree. Rocky, will you change anything handicapping going forward? Are you still looking to kind of use the playoff guys as well?
I won't change anything. I'll keep using my same system. We'll look at track history, track type. We'll be looking at momentum, who's hot, who's not. Guys that's in the playoff, I love the angle, actually. Guys that's in the playoff against guys that's not in the playoffs. My free head-to-head today will be one of those matchups, actually. So,
God, we're going to do it again. We're like a married couple, Rocky.
We got the odds at -200 that you got the same one. Well, and viewers, just something we'll touch on real quick, guys, before we get to the Ricky Stenhouse Award is that, we're doing this show live Wednesdays. We do 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific Wednesday every week. The race is Sunday night. NASCAR is a niche sport. It's good and bad. The bad is that we don't have as many viewers right now as we have for baseball or basketball each day. The good news is that Andy, Rocky, and myself have made a lot of money betting NASCAR over the years, and we find soft lines. The bad news, once again, is when you find these soft lines, they often move 20, 30, 40 cents. And the worst news is that books only put up maybe 10 or 15 matchups until the day before, and then they'll have 50 or 60. So there's good and bad, but the bottom line is it's a very beatable sport for those reasons I just mentioned. The odds makers note as well. So when we're doing the show on Wednesday here, guys, we have maybe 15 matchups available that are kind of semi-universal at the time. And what is an 8% chance that you guys might have the same matchup? And then the fact that we're looking at the same information, have the same thoughts for the most part, it's 20, 30% probably. So not a bad thing, but they've done well. And when these guys have been on the same side, they've done well also. Let's get to the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award. I don't have a ton of great nominees. I'll throw out Gibbs Racing for the reason I mentioned, earlier that they finished. They dropped to the back. 3 of their 4 drivers failed inspection not once, but they both failed. They all 3 failed twice. That's a combined 6 failed inspections on a short track where position is very important normally. And there again, I don't know if Kyle Busch would have won the thing, but he was closing on Harvick. I think another 10 laps, he would have won the thing. Don't know if he doesn't have to start dead last, so that makes a difference, guys. So I'll say Kyle Busch specifically since we have to pinpoint, but we can say Joe Gibbs Racing as well. Rocky, give me some thoughts.
I got a few here. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., first to wreck.
Yeah, of course.
Finished dead last in 40th.
Fire.
Yeah. Also, I got Hamlin. I mentioned earlier Hamlin running to the back of Truex Jr. Stage 2. Keep in mind, these guys are teammates, and they are both in the playoffs. So that's something definitely got to bring up. William Byron, he wrecked in Stage 2. Brad Keselowski's power steering goes out, which is, hard to drive a car in Bristol like that. That's about all I got with the.
Yeah, Andy, I failed to mention Stenhouse, but I wanted one of you guys too because it was 100% certain he would be a nominee because not only did he wreck or whatnot, but there was fire once again. Yeah. Where there's Stenhouse accent, there's fire and racing stripes. There's party on the business in the back, party on the back, business on the back, racing stripes on the whatever the haircut was. We didn't get to see that though. I think he had a hat on.
No, I have to throw out Joey Logano like at the end while he's being lapped, just completely in the way, not pulling over. It honestly looked like 3 guys racing for the lead. It was like, what are you doing? You're lapped down. Get out of the way. Let them race.
Andy, when that was happening, I was thinking about it. I mean, he and Kyle Busch have a history of not liking each other, and I felt like it was screwing Busch a little bit more than Harvick at that time, but I don't know if that's why he was doing it. But yeah, that was a pretty bad move, I thought.
I think he honestly just his brain froze and he just wasn't thinking because he was in everyone's way. I didn't think he was blocking just one on purpose. I thought he was doing it to everybody. My vote is Truex and Hamlin. Just Truex coming out of the pits and Hamlin running into the back of him. Like, how many times have you guys come out on the pit road? Like, this should be one of the easier things to navigate around. Matches Hamlin's hood in, which always cracks me up for some reason. I love the mashed in hood when guys have to drive around in it. That's my vote personally, is teammates. And then of course you get the teammates dynamic. And it includes this thing with Truex. He just cannot put it together for whatever reason. He's so close, yet I never have faith that he's going to close it out this year. So that's my vote.
Yeah, I'm saying we actually maybe could make an argument to give it to Gibbs Racing because you got 2 Gibbs guys there. It's debatable who to give it to of those 2. I mean, you're giving it to Truex more, Andy?
It's just the whole Martin Truex experience. I haven't bet on Truex in forever, but I think I would have a heart attack if I did. It's just everything Truex. There's always going to be some issue, like spark plugs going out and them not realizing they could have just fixed the spark plug and gone back out on the track. Like it's the whole Martin Truex experience.
Yeah, and he finished.
It could be a ride at an amusement park, honestly.
Yeah, and he finished 24th in that race. He'd been top 4 in 8 of the last 10, top 3 in 7 of the last 10, and very well could have been a top 2 or 3, maybe even win the race, and found a way to make the next stage. But can you imagine if that'd been the cutoff for him or Hamlin? Speaking of Hamlin, by the way, you talk about guys bringing it on, bringing it up. I get a sneaking suspicion that Hamlin is not in good current form here. We'll see what he does the next 3, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable with Harvick right now than Hamlin as far as the 2 guys that have won half the races this year. It was Andy. Do you feel like Hamlin still has what it takes to win a championship? I mean, obviously he can.
Oh yeah, he'll be there at the end. Those guys have been too good since the restart. I say that, and then we have the Roval and Talladega, which anything can happen there. So I guess anything's possible, but I would find it hard to believe we come to Phoenix and Hamlin is not in that race.
Yeah, he's good on flat tracks. He's good on these intermediate speedways. He and Harvick have dominated this year. So I guess that's my point. If he, for some reason, is off this week, he better get it together because this is the race you got to somewhat lay down some solid points. And he, once again, viewers, not like Harvick, but he almost has a full race lead as far as playoff points. So he really could mail one of these in and still make it on 2 races. So he'll be in the round of 8 most certainly, but his current form is questionable. Rocky, who would you nominate out of these Gibbs guys? I mean, we've got a lot of options here with Gibbs now.
I think we can just say Joe Gibbs Racing. I think that's fair.
I kind of leaned a little bit to Kyle Busch overall. I think Rocky leaned a little bit to Hamlin, and you're actually kind of leaning to Truex. So let's do it.
All right, Joe Gibbs Racing it is.
They have not won it this year, and and Jones and all 4 of them did something that could have won it. All 4 of them, pretty remarkable for maybe the best race team overall. So I like it.
Yeah.
So for the first time this year, or not the first time for many of the suspects, for the first time all year as a group effort, Joe Gibbs Racing gets the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. award, even though Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was advertising the award mid-race by catching on fire. I mean, he's trying to get it for like a 3rd or 4th time. Although, I mean, if we can make a good case, you want to give it to him. The guy that's named after really should win it more than anybody. However, viewers, there will be a season finale, hopefully a bonus show afterwards, in which we crown the champion. And Ricky Stenhouse has enough playoff points for this award to automatically make it to the finals, I think, guys. We'll give him a little bonus point here for car on fire mid-race. So, Andy, we got, I think, what we got? It's 3 down, 7 to go, right? So yep. 7 more races. So we got more guys, and I still say, well, Harvick be one of them. I've got him at minus 200 on the no. He's just too damn consistent. Yep. Even has Keselowski won it this year, Andy?
Won
I think he has. I think I asked you that the other week. I believe.
Yeah, remember he took out Blaney racing for the lead.
That's right. We talked about that last week.
Yeah, it was teammates, not at the end of the race, racing for the lead. No reason to do that. So yeah, he's won it. So.
I know Hamlin won it with Tungsten, maybe even won it another time.
Oh, the Tungsten. Yeah. Well, he won it last week. Got caught speeding in pit road when he's running up front.
Had Truex won it though? That's the one I'm not sure about.
Yeah, remember the spark plugs in Indianapolis?
Mm-hmm.
They quit the race, and it turns out all they needed to do was stick a spark.
Oh, that's right. I know Kyle Busch has won it. I don't know if Jones has won it though. Did Jones win it? I don't recall him.
I have to look. So I'm just waiting. I'm waiting to talk. Can we please talk about Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin and Bubba, please? Rocky is just chomping at the bit.
And actually, that's a good transition with Joe Gibbs Racing because Denny Hamlin has teamed up with Michael Jordan to give Bubba Wallace a new ride. Wallace is leaving the 43 team, and it's going to be a Toyota team. I'll have a lot of Toyota support. I think they're getting one of the Germain racing licenses that was going to be retired or forfeited over. So it's not a Joe Gibbs car, but Denny Hamlin will be a big owner. Of course, he works with Jordan. He has the Jordan brand on his jumpsuit. Rocky, I'll let you start. Your thoughts here on your favorite driver, Bubba Wallace, the most talented driver of the circuit.
Well, I think Bubba's Bubba. He's what, 23rd, 24th, 25th place. We really don't know if he can drive or not. I mean, he's been in the 43 car, which is not an elite car for whatever reason, owned by Richard Petty. Bubba will improve. I will make that prediction. He's got to improve. There's no way but up. But Michael Jordan, probably my favorite basketball player of all time. I'm a big North Carolina Tar Heel college basketball fan. I think Michael Jordan is the greatest NBA player of all time. Michael Jordan brings the money to the table. However, Michael Jordan owns the Charlotte Hornets. And whenever that happened, I thought that's like my local NBA team. I'm about 2 hours from Charlotte. So I thought when that happened that all the elite NBA players will be flocking into Charlotte to play for Michael Jordan. It hasn't happened. He's been owner for many, many years. So, then you got Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's the key to this success. Denny Hamlin is one of the top two drivers this year. Denny Hamlin, in my opinion, is a future Hall of Famer. Denny Hamlin has knowledge that he can bring to the table, a wealth of knowledge. The issue here that I want to keep an eye on is Denny Hamlin still drives for Joe Gibbs Racing. So is that going to create an issue? Joe Gibbs is a great guy. He's a great guy, but how's he going to feel about Hamlin taking a lot of Joe Gibbs information over to this new team? So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. But Bubba, there's nowhere to go but up. I mean, he's going to do better, no doubt.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and we got to give a breaking news for this one, right, guys? Breaking news, and then we got to actually have the news. But Bubba Wallace is going to drive a new car. Yeah, you wonder if Andy, how much Gibbs? There's a limit. I think Gibbs can only have 4 cars. Otherwise, I think this very well would have been a Gibbs car. They would have done what Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon did. Jeff Gordon was a part owner of Jimmy Johnson's car all those years, and it was a teammate. I think that's what would have happened here. In my opinion, I think it would have been a 5th Gibbs car. Denny Hamlin would have been a part owner because what you're saying, Rocky, makes a lot of sense. Wonder if behind the scenes this is just a technicality using the Germain racing license. It's a Toyota car. They said they're going to get a lot of support from Toyota. I agree with you, Rocky, and I'll throw it to you, Andy. I use the analogy that Bubba Wallace is the modern Danica Patrick. And the reason I say that is because Danica got a ton of promotion being the only female driver. She wasn't any good. That's been proven beyond doubt now that Eric Almirola consistently makes the playoffs in the same car and the same team and wins races right after she couldn't finish top 10 any times in that car. Bubba Wallace, a different story. He has not been with a competitive team. The Matt DiBenedetto scenario could very well play out here. The difference, though, Andy, is that he is going now to a team that's got no track record, so it's not like he's going to the Wood Brothers 21 that Ryan Blaney started with and won a race with and can be a playoff caliber team. So we still might not know for a couple of years if Bubba's any good or not. And I go back to his truck series. He was decent at the truck series, had some better support there, but won races. Danica never really won at the stock car level at any cars, any teams. So I do think Wallace is better than Danica, but I use that scenario because they're marketing gyms, and that of course is what sells. And this is a good move, I think, by Jordan Hamlin. But we'll see if they can really win. Germain Racing, Andy, the car he's getting is not a winning car. We'll see if the Toyota support, and as Rocky said, the Gibbs support makes it a winning car, Andy.
Well, no, and make no mistake about it. Like, everyone wants to get into sports to win. But what you're seeing, and take baseball, for example, half the owners are not even baseball fans. They're business guys that are much more interested in making money than actually winning. And this is, I'm sure, something that Michael Jordan has been thinking about doing for a while. But if you combine Michael Jordan with Bubba Wallace, what you're going to do is something really similar to Danica, is you have a chance to bring in new people and new sponsors to the sport. And that means more money. And Joe Gibbs is no dummy. He knows that more fans, more eyeballs, and more people watching NASCAR for whatever reason is good for the sport. Nobody disliked Danica because they knew how valuable she was. There was even a race where she was struggling, and I believe it was an Xfinity race. She was struggling, and Harvick slowed down and got in front of her and motioned for her to follow him around the track in his line. These guys are no dummies. They know what they're doing. This move wouldn't have been made if they had all their ducks in a row. They know that the combination of Jordan coming into the sport and Bubba Wallace and all the attention that he's getting is good for business. And I don't think it's going to matter how good he runs for the first couple of years. There's going to be so many people interested. You don't think that's going to make SportsCenter a lot more than any other NASCAR race this year? They're constantly going to be updating the Michael Jordan Bubba Wallace car.
Bubba Watson.
And then Bubba Watson jumps in and says, I want to be a part of it. It's like, what is happening? so you and who knows if they'll bring in Bubba Watson as like a 1% owner.
I think there's a chance. I would take odds on that, actually. I think there's a chance.
Why not? What's the worst that can happen if you give him 1%?
Bring the golf audience into the mix now.
Yeah, everyone think Magic Johnson's this big owner of the Dodgers. I think he owns like 1% or less than 1% of it.
That's actually an excellent analogy, Andy. You're exactly right about that.
Even I always forget he owns. Yeah, he comes in waves, and everyone's like, "Yeah, he owns the Dodgers." No, he doesn't. He's a face, though. So, the whole thing is interesting. It's good for NASCAR as far as bringing it to more people, and if more people watch and the sport gets better ratings, that's good for everybody involved.
It's an excellent point. I agree with you. I mean, I think rising tide raises all ships, and that's Bubba Wallace is that rising tide because he brings in a whole nother demographic of viewers. And hey, guys, as NASCAR fans, Rocky, I know when you go to Darlington now, it's not what it used to be. When I go to Richmond, it's half full. And that a lot of it, guys, I never saw them. I say this: Richmond was full up until the 2008 economic recession. They have never been full since. It wasn't a coincidence. Some people have just not come back. I think a lot of the reason, my logic is that it's an aging crowd. They stay home and watch the races. When I've gone the last few years when we could go still before this year, you don't see those 20, 30-year-olds like you used to. You see 40, 50-year-olds, and the 70-year-olds who used to be 50-year-olds aren't there anymore. And I think that's why it's half full. That's my logic. So this could be very good for the sport if it brings in a young crowd. It's much needed. So I like that. I like where you guys are going with this. I'm actually more behind it now because I really wish I knew if Bubba could. I think Bubba could be a playoff caliber driver. I actually think he's not that bad, but we just haven't known. He's never been on a team to compete. And unfortunately, as I said, I'm not sure this will be that team initially, but we'll find out. Let's get to the race that matters, though. First, I want to let everybody know a great special going on right now. And I believe it's a Sports Memo as well, but I know it's at WagerTalk. It's $378 for 60 days, all sports. We had that $199 1-month special a few weeks ago. We said it's about as good as it's gotten. This technically, if you do the math, is better. It's less than $199 a month. And then it's also better because it's going to make you go for 60 days, which means you're going to take a more long-term investment approach and really lock in and make some money. Rocky's at sportsmemo.com. Andy and myself are at wagertalk.com. It's quite simple. 2 months of all sports. Andy does golf, MMA, NASCAR. He sprinkles in props for NBA, NFL, wherever he sees value, something that Rocky and I don't mess much with. So once again, you're getting some great value there. Rocky's doing hockey, baseball, basketball, football, NASCAR, all the big sports. When he sees value, I'm doing baseball, basketball, and football. So you get a nice mix, and you can mix and match. You could get two of us what it would normally cost for one. Get all three of us and really make some money for the next 2 months. Rocky at sportsmemo.com, Andy Lang and myself at wagertalk.com. And don't forget, free plays are up there each and every day from numerous cappers. I've been trying to get a free baseball play up every day this season. Rocky, let's start with Vegas here in the last 15 minutes or so we have on the show. Let's look at Vegas. It's an intermediate 1.5 miler. I was there, guys, in 2008. This is one of the tracks I've witnessed a race at. It is in the middle of nowhere. You drive about 45 minutes from the strip. It's in the middle of the desert. You pass like an Air Force base and some dead carcasses, and you're there. And this is a true story, guys. The one track I've been to Daytona, I've been to Richmond 100 times. You could not bring beer or any drinks into Vegas. It was owned by the other corp. They own like 20 tracks. It was owned by the corporation. This is in 2008. It's one of the saddest sights I've ever seen. It was like noon Pacific time, and there's hundreds of cases of unopened beer just stacked.
Oh my God!
The entrance. And I thought, how ironic. We're in Vegas, and you can't bring drinks into the track. The one track I've been to where you can't do it. Whereas Virginia, Florida, they have no problem with it. But it's a cookie cutter, Rocky. It was a terrible race, worst race I've ever seen. Carl Edwards won it, I believe. We had low seats. We were like fourth row down on the turn. We were getting black tar on us all day long, like the dirt track. Then we had a 50-minute drive home. Luckily, we weren't drinking, so we felt fine because we couldn't bring our beer in. But it's not a great track, but it's a very from a handicapping perspective, guys, it's a great track. And that's because it translates to these 1.5 mile cookie cutters as well as anything. So, Rocky, I kind of know one of your three guys for certain, but I'll let you start off, and can't argue with who you're probably going to go with here as your top pick.
All right, I might fool you here. I'm going to go with Brad Keselowski as my guy.
Wow, that did fool me.
He has 3 wins here, 7 top 5s, 10 top 10s, and 14 races here in Las Vegas. His average finish is 11.3 at this track. In the past 9 races at this type of track, Keselowski has 1 win, 7 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 7.4, which is the best among all drivers. Over the past 6 races here in Las Vegas, Keselowski has 1 win, 6 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 4th, which is, again, best among all drivers. So I'm going to be looking at Brad Keselowski to win it this weekend.
He did trick me, and I should have looked closer, Andy. He does not have the H hat on, so I should have known it wasn't coming. So you have to do your research and read between the lines. But Andy Lang, who do you like here as one of you? Maybe your guy to beat overall, a top 3 guy for sure.
I like his teammate, Joey Logano. The last 5 races here, Brad and Joey Logano are the top 2. Last 3 races at Vegas. Number 1 average finish driver is not Kevin Harvick. It's Joey Logano, believe it or not. His average finish is 3.7. And this is a guy that has been racing real good. He's the 3rd best. He has the 3rd best average finish in the last 3 playoff races. So he's behind Harvick, Kyle Busch, and then it's Joey Logano. So I like guys on the upswing. I like guys that have shown me something. And he's shown a lot earlier in the year. He's shown he can win, and he won this race earlier this year. So we know he loves the track. He's got good history here, and I like his momentum. I'll take Logano.
And I will actually say I like the other Penske guy, Blaney. The only problem is he's not a playoff driver anymore. But he's been as good as anybody this year on these type of tracks. Enough to keep me off maybe is the fact that he's out of the playoffs now. But otherwise, we would have a Penske sweep here. He probably would have been my pick, guys, if he was still in the playoffs. So we started off with Keselowski, Logano, and I'll mention Blaney as a sleeper. Who would have thought I could be using Blaney as my sleeper pick, but maybe that's a sleeper. But Rocky, who else are you looking at? I would guess if it's probably a guy that starts with an H. There's 2 options here you could go with. I'm sure one of them is going to make your top 3, Rocky.
Probably. It's going to be Kevin Harvick. Harvick has 2 wins, 7 top 5s, 11 top 10s, and 22 races here in Vegas. Average finish 13.9 at this track. He's back to being number 1 the past 3 races overall, number 1 the past 10 races overall in average finish position. Over the past 3 races, he has 2 wins, 3 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 3rd. The past 10 races, he has 5 wins, 8 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 5.8. The past 6 races here in Las Vegas, Harvick has led the most laps at 455 laps led. So I'm looking at Harvick to finish 2nd this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking at the odds at different spots. Of course, these odds vary. Harvick technically around 4-1 consensus. He's the favorite. Logano, Keselowski 6-1, 7-1 in a lot of spots. So there's about 6 or 7 guys that are all like single digits this week, and then everyone else is like 20 or 30-1, or higher. So, Andy, it's very top heavy as these cookie cutters often are.
Yep. I'm gonna throw a little curveball. I'm gonna tell you a guy to run far away from this week, and I'll be looking to play against in head-to-heads. That's Chase Elliott. Talk about a guy that's faded. Last 3 races in the playoffs, he's been terrible. His average finish has been outside the top 12. His average finish is 13th. And he doesn't have the really good finishes at the last 5 cookie cutter tracks. Believe it or not, his average finish is 11.4 at the last 5. That's behind guys like Almirola, Reddick, Kurt Busch, Blaney. I think if he's going to advance, it's going to be at a place like the Roval. If he has a bad finish at Talladega, though, he's going to have a lot of room to make up. He's been struggling. Honestly, that whole team has kind of been struggling. They've really not put together four good finishes at any time. I think he's starting to fade, and I will fade Chase Elliott.
Yeah, a little surprised by that, but it makes sense. This has not been one of his better tracks. He's been very good everywhere this year, and I was watching him run well at Bristol. He's a guy we didn't mention in the Bristol recap, but he was as good as anyone last week. He was consistently up there. And I keep thinking, man, this guy's the next star. He's like a Jeff Gordon. He runs well everywhere. He's been dominating the road courses. It's a good setup for him, Charlotte being the last race before the cutoff. It does give him a little wiggle room here. Rocky did not have a great outing, but Rocky, give me another driver you're looking at. Maybe your thoughts on Hendrick in general, though, because Jimmy Johnson. Maybe is this the week he could sneak in and get that win before he retires?
I'm not sure about that. Johnson,
you can say no. You can just say no.
I know, but I want Johnson to win. Actually, I mean, I do want him to.
I do too.
I really do. I'm not a Johnson fan. I haven't been a fan of anybody since Dale Jarrett retired. So I'm just a fan on people I have plays on every week.
I hear you.
But, my third driver is actually the same one that Andy released first, Joey Logano. I think Team Penske is going to have it together this weekend. He has 2 wins here, 6 top 5s, 10 top 10s, and 14 races here in Vegas. Average finish is 8th at this track, which is the best among all active drivers. Over the past 6 races here in Las Vegas, Logano has 2 wins and 6 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 4.3, which is second best among all drivers. So I'm looking at Joey Logano here to do something this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a guy that turns it on come playoff time. We keep talking about it. This is a guy that finds a way to, Keselowski finds a way to get more out of less than anybody, but Logano's a pretty close second. Penske really is a tough team. And if Blaney guys had half of Keselowski and Logano's intuition, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, driver intuition, or experience, he'd be the best guy on the team because he's probably been faster than both of them on average. He's definitely been faster, Andy, on these intermediate speedways. His green lap speed a couple months ago was the best in all of NASCAR when they were running on these type of tracks. So, Andy, let me ask you real quick. We obviously have the Penske party going here. You both have taken Logano. You had Keselowski as your top guy. Give me another pick, but also give me your thoughts on Blaney being a non-playoff guy now, yet running well at this track, yet not in good current form. I mean, what do you do with him this week?
I do him like a haircut and fade.
Fade. You'd actually play against him, though, or would you just stay away? I mean, there's 2 different types of fades, obviously.
No, I'm fading. I'm betting against him. I have no problem putting my hard-earned money against him. He's been the ultimate fade material, and I see a juicy matchup already this week with him. I'll tell you a guy, I can't believe it. Sometimes you just have to throw your hands in the air and say, I don't understand why it's happening, but it is. Austin Dillon has found something. I don't know what it is, but here's the average finishes last 3 races. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Austin Dillon, Eric Almirola. I mean, the results speak for themselves. I know we had 2 shorter tracks, but we also had Darlington in there. I don't know what clicked. I don't know if they're going to fail inspection in one of these races and they're going to discover something bad about his car. But he's been really good. I can't ignore it. If I find a good matchup, I think I'm just going to take the hot hand.
And by the way, one guy we haven't mentioned the team so far, and that's Gibbs Racing, the winner of the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award. But I have this banner still here, so I got to use it for you guys. He's due. It was my banner last week for Kyle Busch. Rocky, any interest in any Gibbs guys this week?
No interest from me for Gibbs. I do agree with you, however, on my long shot. which is Ryan Blaney.
Wow.
I mean, I like Ryan Blaney this week. I think Team Penske is going to be strong here this weekend. What I saw was like 10-1 odds, which is not a huge long shot, but I think he's got potential to finish well. He hasn't won here, but he has 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 8 starts here in Vegas. His average finish is 10th at this track, which is second best among all active drivers. Past 6 races here in Las Vegas, he has 4 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 9.2. Again, I'm on Team Penske this weekend strong.
Yeah, I've seen him at 10-1 at DraftKings, 12-1 at one of the offshores. So we'll say 11-1. We'll cut it in the middle there. But Andy is fading him. Rocky is on him. I'm definitely not fading him. I have concerns. The problem for me, guys, is 11-1 just isn't enough for me to use a guy I have concerns on. But he has been as fast as anybody at times this year in these type of tracks. I think this is a really important race. So if he doesn't show up this week, then Andy, I'm double fading. I'm doing a high top fade and racing stripes on the side for next week. So let me think. Anybody else you looking at any of the long shots? If not, give me a matchup. What else are you looking at here?
Rocky, go ahead and do your matchup.
Because you might be the same.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed this. You really think we on the same one?
Probably. Go ahead.
It's possible because you have mentioned this guy, Austin Dillon over William Byron.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I doubt that's Andy's. When I heard Austin Dillon come out of your mouth, I was like, probably not.
Go ahead. I love the pick. That's a great pick.
Austin Dillon, he has no wins here. 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, and 10 races here in Vegas. The average finish is 14.7 at this track. Dillon has 2 top 10 finishes the past 3 races overall, with an average finish of 6th, which is 4th best overall the past 3 races. William Byron has no wins, no top 5s, only 1 top 10 in 5 races here in Vegas. His average finish is 21.8 at this track. And I'm just going to throw in there Andy's angle. We have a playoff driver against a non-playoff driver now. So we're going to recommend a small play on Austin Dillon to finish ahead of William Byron. Also, just if anybody can see this matchup out there and get it, it's like an added matchup where I look. But if you can play Jimmy Johnson over Christopher Bell, it's -115. That's definitely. I won't be giving it out because I don't think everybody can actually get it. So I won't be giving it out. But if you can play Jimmy Johnson over Christopher Bell, take a look at that one this weekend.
And one of you has already played it because it's right now as we're doing this show live, it's now -135 plus 105. So I have a feeling somebody's already played that, and it'll continue to go up. And that's what we talked about earlier, guys. That's the beauty of NASCAR. There's soft lines, and they don't last long. That's the downside. But Andy, what are your thoughts there? You like the Dillon? I am seeing that at a pick'em still, Rocky, -115 over Byron. Andy, you agree with that? And you have a different one apparently, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm going back to Kyle Busch over Ryan Blaney. This is my angle of guys who are peaking and guys who are in the playoffs versus a guy who's not. I don't believe in Blaney. I know his team is going to run good, but that doesn't mean he is. The last 3 races in the playoffs, Kyle Busch is the second best driver behind only Harvick. Blaney is way down there with an average finish of 18.7. And honestly, it's been a while since we've run these cookie cutters. I mean, I'm looking, and I believe I'm looking down to almost July. It's been a while. So a lot has changed since then. Kyle Busch was terrible then. Blaney was doing really good, but things have changed. So I cashed that one last week, and I'm going to go do it again. Kyle Busch over Ryan Blaney.
Is that not a textbook example, guys, of what Andy said earlier about being flexible and nimble and ninja-like in your handicapping? Because 2-3 months ago, that would have been the lock of the year for all of us, Blaney over Kyle Busch on an intermediate speedway. Blaney had been better than anybody at the time. Kyle Busch was not getting it together, but it's playoff time, and he kind of had a feeling that he's due. I kept saying it, but he's turning things around. Good point, Andy, about this being the first time in a while they've raced here. 2 ways to look at that. Maybe Blaney does pop back and all of a sudden have something. He's just not been on tracks that have helped him. But I get a sneaking suspicion and concern that something's not right with him. And even if he wanted to be right, this is going to wear him down these weeks of not performing. And you also wonder if there's a hangover after missing the cut. 2 ways to look at it. He goes out there loose, or he also goes out there not caring as much. So I think he's a dangerous commodity. By the way, Andy, we also have a matchup pick 'em. Chase Elliott versus Blaney to play against guys for you this week. I guess you'd rather have Elliott, obviously, in the playoff scenario.
I'll put my assets elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought that was comical. Your two playoff, and I hate when that happens, guys, when you get two play against guys and they're matched up. Because when I go into looking at the matchups each week, I kind of have a list of play against guys, and I'm looking to see, hopefully to get one against the other. And whenever it's the odds makers do a really good job of that. They, by the way, also have a pick'em against Keselowski Logano pick'em head-to-head matchup as well.
They've done that every week, though.
They do. That's kind of a standard matchup, just like the Harvick Hamlin, Harvick Truex, that type of stuff. Andy, in the last couple of minutes, we got anything Formula One this week, or how's that been going? You've been keeping any eyes on that?
Yeah. So I just made a bet in the chat room. I will wear a pink tank top next week for the show if Chase Elliott wins, because Landon just loves Chase Elliott, and I don't this week. Yes, I do have a Formula One pick. I mean, it's just Lewis Hamilton every week. It's Lewis Hamilton or nothing. I do have to say, guys, last weekend you talked about fringe sports. So with my golf, my UFC, and my NFL props and NASCAR, I had my best week ever. Went 15-1.
Wow,
that is the best week I have ever had, ever. So that's with NFL going on, college football going on. I mean, the money still spends. I've always said that the fringe sports offer the best value. It's just so hard to have an edge. I mean, Rocky and I are around the 65-70% hit range for NASCAR, but if you hit 57% in NFL, you're seen as one of the best in the business. So, I love the fringy sports. I know not as many people play them, but it's my bread and butter. It's in my wheel.
So just think, if you take that 378, you get the next 60 days of Andy Lang's fringy sports that went 15-1 this past week. And speaking of win percentages in the NFL, Rocky's at sportsmemo.com. Rocky, would you hit over 70%? And you guys, I always wait till the end of the show to do this because people would just turn us off if they hear that Andy went 15-1 or that Rocky hit 70% NFL last year. But after you hear these guys talk for 45 minutes, they know their stuff and they're not just blowing smoke. Rocky, you had a NFL season for the ages last year. What was it, 71%, I think?
74%.
74. I shortchanged him, Andy. Shame on me. And like Rocky said, hey, look, he's not giving out 20 picks a week. Obviously, no one's going to hit 74% with high volume, but you hit 74% with any amount of picks over an entire NFL season. You've made money to make that 378 special look like chump change. So, Rocky, what you got going for this week at sportsmemo.com?
Right now, I only have my NFL up. I put it up this morning. I've got a top play going Sunday, and I'm 17-2. My last 19 top NFL plays. I'm only 1-1 this year. I do have a Monday Night Football play I loaded up as well. That's my only 2 NFL picks for the week. I have no NASCAR up yet. And I cashed baseball last night. I had Arizona. They beat Texas 7-0. Easy winner there. And my baseball run is 39-12 now. My last pick.
My goodness. I mean, this is why this special, guys, is so incredible. For basically what is normally the price for one guy, you could get both Andy and Rocky for the next 2 months combined. You're going to get selectivity in NFL and MLB, as Rocky has, hitting over 70% of both. You're going to get sports that no one else is releasing: golf, NASCAR, NFL, NBA props, etc. from Andy that went 15-1 last week. Once again, I'm glad we're doing this at the end of the show because viewers would have literally have turned this off when they hear these numbers and think they just run for cover. Andy also has the live UFC show on weekends. Andy, you doing it this Saturday?
Yes. After the absolute circus that was last week, it was if you guys were in the room, you would know what an absolute.
It's the one I missed, Andy. It's the only time I missed the show all season, and I missed the circus.
We had 7,000 people.
Wow.
And it was Colby Covington who's polarizing. That spiraled out of control. And then you had Chimaev. So we had all these people coming in asking for live streams. It was a blast, though. I mean, we lost control of the show, yet we still went 4-2. So we had so much fun doing it. Yes, we will.
Yeah, I watched a little bit afterwards because I wasn't able to check in like I normally did. I saw it was like right after the show was 6,500 viewers, and it hits over 7,000 after some replays, and I was like, oh my goodness, this thing is taking off. I remember when it had 20 viewers back in week 1. So it's pretty nice, guys. And we got a lot of loyal viewers here for Life in the Fast Lane that translate over to UFC Live, so we appreciate it. Robert, we saw you, Corey, Andy, Illuminous. We see you guys each and every day in the chat here. We appreciate it. All you regulars out there, too many to name at times. We appreciate it. Once again, Rockies at sportsmemo.com. 70% runs, MLB, NFL. What more could you want? Andy, golf, NASCAR, UFC live this weekend. You'll be back here on the same Wager Talk TV channel. When's that start, Andy? 5, 6 p.m. Eastern this weekend?
Just look and see when the prelims are. It's a pay-per-view, so my guess is it starts later than the
usually around 6 Eastern.
6, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, safe bets around 6 Eastern. Check in when the first fight's going. He gives you in-game bets live for free on the show. The same games him and his partner Nathan are using. And then, of course, I'm also at WagerTalk.com, guys, and I've got football, baseball, and basketball best bets for this week, and also free plays every day at WagerTalk.com. So once again, Rocky at SportsMemo.com, Andy and myself at WagerTalk.com. Hey, guys, great show. Thanks for being here. We will be back next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific live each and every Wednesday. And then, of course, archived on YouTube all week long for your NASCAR handicapping here, live on the Fast Lane, Wager Talk TV. Good luck this week, everyone.